The Civil War in Northern Ireland. Internment, Part 2. I've still got a few things to say about the run-up before the day of internment. The two IRA that we captured, who tried to bomb a patrol with an improvised explosive device. One gave information. He literally pissed himself with his 2 pairs of jeans on because he was that frightened. Yes, he was manhandled, to say the least. Paras do that type of thing if you try and kill them. The wounded one was evacuated to Belfast General Hospital. The next night, 12 IRA gunmen entered the hospital, overpowered the guards, and took the wounded IRA man to Southern Ireland for treatment. This incident shows that in Ballymurphy area there was a lot of gunmen before the day of internment. One more incident that took place was a group of women were captured, well, not captured, were found digging up paving stones, big paving stones, and putting them into the road. This was a Land Rover patrol led by Corporal Salt, and I was on the patrol. So we came across these women doing heavy manual work in the evening, digging up the paving stones, putting them on the road so that their husbands could later on ambush her as we came down the road and had to stop. Women were just as active as the men in the IRA, and proudly the IRA have confirmed that there's a women's organization of the IRA. They also had a youth movement. What is a youth movement? Children. Yes, they had a children in the IRA. I was talking to 2 Royal Marine commandos. I think they were 42 commando. They were attending a court case in Northern Ireland. One of them had been shot on New Lodge Road, and a civilian ambulance was called to take him to the General Hospital. The officer put in a soldier to escort him to the hospital, who was armed, obviously, with his SLR rifle. As they were going up New Lodge Road, the ambulance was stopped by a group of women and children, who then surrounded the ambulance so it couldn't move. You can see out of an ambulance, but you can't see into an ambulance. And the soldier that was guarding the wounded comrade saw a gap appear at the rear of the ambulance as 2 IRA men came in through the women and children to execute the wounded soldier in the ambulance. So he fired through the glass at the 2 IRA gunmen. What you read in the paper was women and children were put in harm's way by soldiers firing into the crowd. There's always 2 sides to a story. Women and children in the places like Ballymurphy and New Lodge Road were totally active, assisting the IRA. One more incident that happened, which was the local priest who we later killed on the day of internment. He came up to a patrol led by Corporal Mike Harden and complained about the treatment paratroopers were dishing out to his congregation and accusing them of shooting indiscriminately and being trigger happy. Just at that moment, a soldier who was resting his rifle on his foot had an accidental discharge, and the priest ran off storming, angry about the incident, which showed that soldiers were trigger happy. But it wasn't the case. There's always two sides to a story. The soldiers were brought into me, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what's his foot going to like? The rifle was on his boot. So I took off the boot, and his sock was drenched in blood, and he had a nice little neat hole, 7.62 hole through his big toe, which was now very black. But the bleeding had stopped. And although in shock, he was more in shock with the Sergeant Major threatening him. Sergeant Major Piggy MacDonald said, "Why did you have an accidental discharge?" The soldier says, "Sir, I never touched the rifle. The rifle was on safety. The bullet went off on its own." Well, the 3 or 4 of us in the room didn't believe him. Then Piggy MacDonald, the Sergeant Major, unloaded the weapon, took off the magazine, cocked the rifle 2 times to clear the weapon. On inspection, he couldn't find a fault. Then he emptied the magazine. In the magazine, he found 5 bullets with strike marks on them. These were bullets that were regularly put up the breech when they're going on patrol. And they shouldn't have had strike marks on them. When you cock your weapon and put one up, the firing pin shouldn't be touching the cap, which explodes the bullet. But there was definitely strike marks on the rounds. This proved he was innocent. It was a malfunction with the rifle. The company sergeant major then got every soldier to unload his magazines. And it was amazing that it was nearly 30% of the ammunition with strike marks on it. So it showed that the old weapons needed replacing. All the ammunition was immediately replaced. And we were given orders not to put any bullets up the spout, which gives the IRA a little added bonus on speed when they ambushed with. But the weapons were literally useless and dangerous. So they had to be replaced, and later on, when we went back to Aldershot, they were replaced eventually. SAS still had their weapons when I joined the SAS, but that's another story. Reading newspapers and watching television at the time before internment, the IRA were winning the propaganda war, hands down. Officers and politicians in England didn't have a clue what was happening on the ground and how well organized the IRA were becoming. They had a propaganda machine far better than the British could organize. So American press, all British soldiers were the bad guys. We were all the bad guys. But, we got sent to Northern Ireland to protect the Catholics from the B specials and the police and the rioting Protestants. And now we were the bad guys. A little girl came up to me. She'd slashed her wrist, and her mother was with her. Mother had 6 kids. I didn't hesitate at looking after the little girl and stitching her arm up. Another incident, a woman came running to my patrol. "Oh, help me, help me." This is down in near the church in Ballymurphy. My husband's bleeding, he's in agony. So I was a bit wary at the time in case I was getting ambushed. But I went into the house, and there he was, spewing up blood and bile. So I arranged for a 999, called an ambulance, and advised them to be ready for surgery as he was in a serious condition. Incidents like that weren't reported. Our priest, Captain Padre Weston, tried to defuse the situation in Ballymurphy by making contact with Father Hugh Mullen, who was the local Catholic priest. Padre Weston led a group of paratroopers, Catholics from B Company 2 Para, unarmed. They went down to Sunday Mass. Father Mullen didn't want to know. He didn't want to bring peace. He didn't want to try and defuse the situation in Ballymurphy. Our Captain Padre Weston made a very heroic attempt, going down many times into Ballymurphy, trying to bring peace and reconciliation amongst the Catholics and the paratroopers. This was a civil war. Nobody was listening. The heads were away. And both priests, Captain Weston was killed by the IRA, and Hugh Mullen was killed by B Company 2 Barrett on the day of internment, which I'll talk about now.